Chapter 4. The Leaky Cauldron. It took Harry several days to get used to this strange new freedom. Never before had he been able to get up whenever he wanted or eat whatever he fascinated. He could even go wherever he pleased, and long as it was in Diagon Alley, and as this long cobble street was packed with the most fascinating Wizardian shop in the world, Harry felt no desire to break his world to fudge and stray back into the Muggle world. Harry ate breakfast each morning in the Leaky Cauldron where he liked watching the other guests, funny little witches from the country up for a day shopping, vulnerable looking wizard arguing over the latest article in Transfiguration today, wild looking warlocks, raucous dwarf, and one what looked suspiciously like a hag who ordered a plate of raw liver from behind a thick woolen balaclava. After breakfast, Harry would go out into the backyard, take out his wand, tap the third brick from the left above the trash tin, and stand back as the archway into Diagon Alley opened in the wall. Harry spent the long sunny days exploring the shop and eating under the brightly colored umbrellas outside cafes where he followed dinner were showing one another their punctures. The landscape, old boy, no more messing around with Moonchard C. Or else discussing the case of Cyrus Black. Personally, I won't let any of the children out alone until he is back in Azkaban. Harry didn't have to do his homework under the blanket by flashlight anymore. Now he could sit in the bright sunlight shine outside Florence Forcue's ice cream parlor, fishing all his eyes with occasional help from Florence Forcue himself, who, apart from knowing a great deal about medieval witch burnings, gave Harry free shots every half an hour. Once Harry had refilled his money bag with gold callan, silver sickle, and bronze nuts from his vault at Grignard's, he had to exercise a lot of self-control not to spend the whole lot at once. He had to keep reminding himself that he had 5 years to go at Hogwarts, and now it would feel to ask the Dursleys for money for spellbook to stop himself from buying a handsome set of solid gold gobstones, a Wizardian game rather like marble in which the stone squirts a nasty smelling liquid into the other player's face. They lose a point. He was sorely tempted to buy the perfect moving model of the galaxy in a large glass ball, which would have meant he never had to take another astronomy lesson, but the thing that tested Harry's resolution most appeared in his favorite shop, Quality Quid Supplies, a week after he had arrived at a Leaky Cauldron. Curious to know what the crowd in the shop was staring at, Harry eased his way inside the squeezed in among the excited witches and wizards until he glimpsed a newly erected podium on which was mounted the most magnificent broom he had ever seen in his life. Just come out, prompted a square-jawed wizard was telling his companion. It's the fastest broom in the world, isn't it, Dad? Squeaked a boy younger than Harry who was swinging off his father's arm. It is international size. Just put in an order for 7 of these beauties, the properties of the shop told the crowd. And they are favorite for the World Cup. A large witch in front of Harry moved, and he was able to read the sign next to the broom. The Firebolt. This state-of-the-art racing broom report a streamlined, sapphire handle of ash threatened with a diamond hard polish and hard numbered with its own registration number. Each individually select breech twig in the broom's tail has been honed to aerodynamic perfection, giving the firebolt unsuppressible balance and pinpoint precision. The firebolt has an acceleration of 150 miles an hour in 10 seconds and incorporated an unbreakable braking charm. Price on request. Price on request. Harry didn't like to think how much gold the firebolt would cost. He had never wanted anything as much in his whole life. but he had never lost a Quidditch match on his Nimbus 2000, and what was the point in emptying his Gringotts vault for the firebolt when he had a very good broom already? Harry didn't ask for the prize, but he returned almost every day after that just to look at Firebolt. There were, however, things that Harry needed to buy. He went to the apothecary to replenish his store to potion ingredients, and as his school robes were now several inches too short in the arm and leg, he visited Madame Malkin's robe for all occasions and brought new ones. Most important of all, he had to buy his new school book, which would include those for his two new subjects, Care of Magic Creatures and Aviation. Harry got a surprise as he looked in at the bookshop window. Instead of the usual display of gold embossed spellbook the size of Peverill's slab, there was a large iron cage behind the glass that held about 100 copies of the Monster Book of Monsters. Torn pages were flying everywhere as the books grabbed other together in furious wrestling matches and snapping aggressively. Harry pulled his book list out of his pocket and consulted it for the first time, the Monster Book of Monsters, and listed as the required book for care of magical creature. Now Harry understood why Hagrid had said it would come in useful. He felt relieved. He had been wondering whether Hagrid wanted help with some terrifying new pet. As Harry entered Flourish and Blots, the man Agar came hurrying toward him. Hogwarts, he said abruptly, come to get your new book. Yes, said Harry, I need. Get out of the way, said the manager impatiently, brushing Harry aside. He drew on a pair of very thick gloves, picked up a large knobby walking stick, and proceeded toward the door of the monster book cage. Hang on, said Harry quickly. I have already got one of those, have you? A look of enormous relief spread over the manager's face. Thank heavens for that. I have been beaten 5 times already this morning. A loud dripping noise rent the air. Two of the monster's books had seized a third and were pulling it apart. Stop it, cried the manager, poking the walking stick through the bars and knocking the books apart. I'm never shocking them again, never. It's been deadly. I thought we had seen the worst when we bought 200 copies of the Invisible Book of Invisibility. Cost a fortune and we never found them. Well, is there anything else I can help you with? Yes, said Harry, looking down his book list. I need Unfogging the Future by Cassandra Walsky. Oh, starting the aviation, are you? Said the manager, stripping off the glove and leading Harry into the back of the shop. There was a corner developed to fortune telling. A small table was stacked with volumes such as Predicting the Unpredictable, Insult Yourself Against Shock, and Broken Balls when Fortune turned foul. Here you are, said the manager, who had climbed a set of steps to take down a thick black bound book. Unfogging the Future, very good guide to all your basic fortune telling methods. Palm Ministry, Crystal Ball, Third Entrail, but Harry wasn't listening. His eyes had fallen on another book, which was among a display on a small table. Death Omens, What to Do When You Know the Worst is Coming. Oh, I wouldn't read that if I were you, said the manager lightly, looking to the see what Harry was staring at. You'll start seeing death omens everywhere. It's enough to frighten anyone to death. But Harry continued to stare at the front cover of the book. It showed a black dog large as a bear with a gleaming eye. It looked oddly familiar. The manager pressed Unfogging the Future into Harry's hand. Anything else? He said. Yes, said Harry, tearing his eyes away from the dogs and dazedly consulting his book list. I need Intermediate Transfiguration and the Standard Book of Spell Grade 3. Harry emerged from the Flourish and Blot 10 minutes later with his new books under his arm and made his way back to Leaky Cauldron. Hardly noticing where he was going and bumping into several people, he tramped up the stairs to his room, went inside, and tripped his books onto his bed. Somebody had been in the too tidy. The window were open and sun was pouring inside. Harry could hear the buses rolling by in the unseen Mughal street behind him and the sound of invisible crowd below. In diagonally he caught sight of himself in the mirror over the basin. It can't have been a dead woman, he told his reflection. Definitely, I was panicking when I saw that thing in Magnolia Crescent. It was probably just a stray dog. He raised his hand automatically and tried to make his ear lie flat. You are fighting a losing battle there, dear, said his mirror in a wheezy voice. As the days slipped by, Harry started looking wherever he went for a sign of Ron and Hermione. Plenty of Hogwarts students were arriving in diagonally. Now, with the start of term so near, Harry met Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas, his fellow Gryffindors in quality Quidditch supplies, where they too were ogling the firebolt. He also ran into the real Neville Longbottom, a round-faced, forgetful boy. Outside Flourish and Blood, Harry didn't stop to chat. Neville appeared to have mislaid his book list and was being told off by his very formidable-looking grandmother. Harry hoped she never found out that he had pretended to be Neville while on the run from the Ministry of Magic. Harry woke on the last day of the holiday thinking that he would at least meet Ron and Hermione tomorrow on the Hogwarts Express. He got up dressed, went for the last look at the firebolt, and was just wondering where he had have lunch when someone yelled his name and he turned. Harry, Harry, they were there. Both of them sitting outside Florent Fortescue's ice cream parlor, Ron looking incredibly freakily, Hermione very brown, both waving frantically at him. Finally, said Ron, grinning at Harry as he sat down, we went to the Leaky Cauldron, but they said you had left. And we went to Flourish and Blots and Madame Malkin's, and I got all my school stuff last week. Harry explained. And how come you knew I'm staying at the Leaky Cauldron? Dad, said Ron simply. Mr. Weasley, who worked at Ministry of Magic, would of course have heard the whole story of what had happened to Aunt March. Did you really blow up your aunt, Harry? Said Hermione in a very serious voice. I didn't mean to, said Harry while Ron roared and laughed. I just lost control. It's not funny, Ron, said Hermione sharply. Honestly, I'm amazed Harry wasn't expelled. So I am, admitted Harry. Forgot expelled. I thought I was going to be arrested. He looked at Ron. Your dad doesn't know why first let me off, does he? Probably cause it's you, isn't it? Struggled Ron, still chuckling. Famous Harry Potter and all that. I had hate to see what the ministry had do to me if I blew up an ant. Mind you, they had have to dig me up first because Mum would have killed me. Anyway, you can ask Dad yourself this evening. We are staying at the Leaky Cauldron tonight too. So can some to King's Cross with us tomorrow. Hermione is there as well. Hermione nodded, beaming. Mum and Dad dropped me off this morning with all my Hogwarts things. Excellent, said Harry happily. So how you got all your new books and stuff? Look at this, said Ron, pulling a long thin box out of a bag and opening it. Brand new one, 14 inches willow containing one unicorn tail here, and we have got all our books. He pointed at a large bag under his chair. What about those monsters books? Yeah, the assistant nearly cried when he said we wanted to. What's all that, Hermione? Harry asked, pointing at not one of their three bulging bags in the chair next to her. Well, I'm thinking more new subjects than you, aren't I? Said Hermione. Those are my books for Archimacy, care of magical creature, deviation, study of ancient trance, Muggle study. What are you doing Muggle studies for? Said Ron, rolling his eyes at Harry. You're Muggle born, your mum and dad are Muggles. You already know all about Muggles, but I'll be fascinating to study them from the Wizardian point of view, said Harmony earnestly. Are you planning to eat or sleep at all this year, Harmony? Asked Harry while Ron's nigger Hermione ignored them. I have still got 10 gallons, she said, checking her purse. It's my birthday in September, and Mum and Dad gave me some money to get myself an early birthday present. How about a nice book? Said Ron innocently. No, I don't think so, said Hermione confidently. I really want an owl. I mean, Harry's got Hedwig and you have got Yerol. I haven't, said Ron. Yerol's a family owl. All I have got is Scabber. He pulled his pet rat out of his pocket and I want to get him checked over. He added, placing Scabber on the table in front of them. I don't think Egypt agreed with him. Scabbers was looking thinner than usual and there was a definite drop to his whisker. There is a magical creature shop just over there, said Harry, who knew Diagon Alley very well by now. You could, well, by now, got anything for Scrabber and Harmony can get her owl. So they paid for their ice cream and crossed the street to the magical McGree's. There wasn't much room inside where inch of wall was hiding by cages. It was smelly and very noisy because the occupants of this cage were all squeaking, jabbering or hissing. The witch behind the counter was already advising a wizard on the care of double-ended newt. So Harry, Ron and Hermione waited examining the cage. A pair of enormous purple toads sat gulping wetly and faceting on dead flobbies. A gigantic tortoise with a jewel-encrusted shell was glittering near the window. Poisonous orange snails were oozing slowly up the side of their glass tank, and a fat white rabbit kept changing into a silk top hat and back again with a loud popping noise. Then there were cats of every color, a noisy cage of ravens, a basket of funny clustered colored furbear that were humming loudly, and on the counter a vast cage of a sleek black rat that were playing some sort of skipping game using their long bell tail. The double-ended newt wizard led, and Ron approached the counter. It's my rat, he told the witch. He been a bit of color ever since I brought him back from Egypt. Bang him on the counter, said the witch, pulling a pair of heavy black spectacles out of her pocket. Ron lifted Scabber out of his inside pocket and placed him next to the cage of his fellow rats, who stopped their skipping tricks and scuffled to the wire for a better look. Like nearly everything Ron owned, Scabber the rat was second-hand. He had once belonged to Ron's brother Percy, and a bit battered next to the glossy rat in the cage. He looked especially woebegone. Said the witch, picking up Scabber. How old is this rat? Don't know, said Ron. Quite old. He used to belong to my brother. What power does he have? Said the witch, examining the Scabber closely. The truth was that Scabber had never shown the faintest chance of interesting powers. The witch eye moved from Scabber tattered left ear to his front paw, which had the toe missing, and tuttered loudly. He's been through the mail, this one, she said. He was like that when Percy gave him to me, said Ron defensively. An ordinary common or garden rat like this can't be expected to live longer than 3 years or so, said the witch. Now, if you were looking for something a bit more hard-wearing, you might like one of those. She indicated the black rat, who promptly started skipping again. Ron muttered, slow off. Well, if you don't want a replacement, you can try this rat tonic, said the witch, reaching under the counter and bringing out a small red bottle. Okay, said Ron. How much? Ouch. Ron buckled, and something huge and orange came roaring from the top of the highest cage, landed on his head, and then propelled itself, spitting madly at Scabber. No, Crookshank, no, cried the witch, but Scabbard shot from between her hand like a bar of shot, landed sprawlingly leg on floor, and then scampered for the door. Scabbard, Ron shouted, racing out of the shop after him. Harry rolled. It took them nearly 10 minutes to catch Scabbard, who had taken refuge under a vast paper bin outside Quality Quitch Supplies. Ron stuffed the trembling rat back into the pocket and straightening up, massing his head. What is that? It was neither a very big cat or quite a small tiger, said Harry. Where's Harmony? Probably getting her out. They made their way back to the crowded street to the magical menagerie. As they reached it, Harmony came out, but she wasn't carrying an owl. Her arms were clamped tightly around the enormous ginger cat. You bought that monster, said Ron, his mouth hanging open. He is gorgeous, isn't he? Said Harmony, glowing. That was a matter of opinion. Though Harry the cat's ginger fur was thick and fluffy, but it was definitely a bit bulged and its face looked lumpy and oddly squished as though it had run headlong into a brick wall. Now that Scabbard was out of sight, however, the cat was pouring contentedly in Harmony's arm. Harmony, that thing nearly scalped me, said Ron. He didn't mean to, did you? Crookshank, said Harmony. And what about Scabbard, said Ron, pointing at the lump in his chest pocket. We need rest and realization. How's he's going to get it with that thing around? That reminds me, you forgot your rat tonic, said Harmony, slapping the small red bottle into Ron's hand. And stop worrying, Crookshank will be sleeping in my dormitory and Scabbard in yours. What's the problem? Poor Crookshank, that witch said he had been in there for ages. No one wants him. I wonder why, said Ron sarcastically as they set off toward the Leaky Cauldron. They found Mr. Weasley sitting in the bar reading the Daily Prophet. Harry, he said, smiling as he looked up. How are you? Fine, thanks, said Harry as Ron, and Hermione joined Mr. Weasley with all their shopping. Mr. Weasley put down his paper, and Harry saw the now familiar picture of Sirius Black staring up at him. They still haven't caught him, then? He asked. No, said Mr. Weasley, looking extremely grave. They have pulled us all of our regular jobs at the ministry to try and find him, but no luck so far. Will we get a reward if we caught him? Asked Ron. It had to be good to get some more money. Don't be ridiculous, Ron, said Mr. Weasley, who on close inspection looked very strained. Black's not going to be caught by a 13-year-old wizard. It's the Azkaban guards who'll get them back. You mark my word. At that moment, Mr. Weasley entered the car, landed with shopping bags, and followed by the twins Fred and George, who were about to start their fifth year at Hogwarts. The newly elected head boy Percy, and the Weasleys' youngest child, and one girl, Ginny. Ginny, who had always been very taken with Harry, seemed even more heartily embarrassed than usual when she saw him, perhaps because he had saved her life during their previous year at Hogwarts. She went very red and muttered hello without looking at him. Percy, however, held out his hand solemnly as though he and Harry had never met and said, Harry, how nice to see you. Hello, Percy, said Harry, trying not to laugh. I hope you are well, said Percy promptly, shaking hand. It was rather like being introduced to the mayor. Very well, thanks, Harry, said Fred, elbowing Percy out of the way and bowing deeply. Simple, splendid to see you, old boy. Marvelous, said George, pushing Fred aside and seizing Harry's hand in turn, absolutely spiffing Percy's coat. That's enough now, said Mr. Weasley. Mum, said Fred as though he had only just spotted her and seizing her hand too. How really crocking to see you. I said that enough, said Mrs. Weasley, disappointing her shopping in an empty chair. Hello, Harry dear. I suppose you have heard our exciting news. She pointed to the brand new silver badge on Percy's chest. Second head boy in the family, she said, swelling with pride. And last Fred muttered under his breath. I don't doubt that, said Mrs. Weasley, frowning suddenly. I noticed they haven't made you two perfects. What do we want to do perfect for? Said George, looking revolted at the very idea I had taken all the fun out of life. Ginny giggled. You want to set a better example for your sisters, snapped Mrs. Weasley. Ginny's got other brothers to set her an example, mother, said Percy loftily. I'm going up to change for dinner. He disappeared and George have a sign. We tried to shut him in a pyramid, he told Harry, but Mum spotted us. Dinner that night was a very enjoyable affair. Tom the innkeeper put three tables together in the parlor, and the seven Weasley, Harry, and Hermione ate their way through five delicious courses. However, we are getting to King's Cross tomorrow, Dad, asked Fred as they dug into a sumptuous chocolate pudding. The ministry is providing a couple of cars, said Mr. Weasley. Everyone looked up at him. Why, said Percy curiously. It's because of you, Percy, said George seriously, and there will be little flag on the hoods with HB on them for humongous bite head, said Fred. Everyone except Percy and Mrs. Weasley snorted into their pudding. Why are the ministry providing cars, Father? Percy asked again in a dignified voice. Well, as we haven't got one anymore, said Mr. Weasley, and as I work there, they are doing it me a favor. His voice was casual, but Harry couldn't help noticing that Mr. Weasley's ear had gone red just like Ron's did when he was under pressure. Good thing too, said Miss Weasley briskly. Do you realize how much luggage you have all got between you? A nice sight you had be on the Muggle underground. You are all packed, aren't you? Ron hasn't put all his new things in his trunk yet, said Percy in a long-suffering voice. He's dumped them on my bed. You had better go and pack properly, Ron, because we won't have much time in the morning. Mrs. Weasley called down the table. Ron called at Percy. After dinner, everyone felt very full and sleepy. One by one, they made their way upstairs to their rooms to check their things for next day. Ron and Percy were next door to Harry. He had just closed and locked his own trunk when he heard angry voice through the wall and went to see what was going. The door of number 12 was ajar and Percy was shouting. It was here, on the beside table. I took it off for polishing. I haven't touched it. All right, Ron roared back. What's up? Said Harry. My head boy badge is gone, said Percy, rounding on Harry. So Scabbers rat Tony, said Ron, throwing things out of his trunk to look. I think I might have left it in the bar. You are not going anywhere till you have found my badge, yelled Percy. I'll get Scabbers' stuff. I'm packed, Harry said to Ron, and he went downstairs. Harry was halfway along the passage to the bar, which was now very dark. Then he heard another pair of angry voices coming from the parlor. A second later, he recognized them as Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. He hesitated, not wanting them to know he had heard them arguing. When the sound was of his own name made him stop, then moved closer to parlor door. Make no sense not to tell him, Mr. Weasley was saying heartedly. Harry got a right to know. I have tried to tell Fudge, but he insists on treating Harry like a child. He's 13-year-old and Arthur the truth will terrify him, said Mrs. Weasley shrilly. Do you really want to send Harry back to school with that hanging over him? For heaven's sake, he is happy not knowing. I don't want to make him miserable. I want to put him on a guard, prodded Mr. Weasley. You know what Harry and Ron are like, wandering off by themselves. They are even ended up in the Forbidden Forest But Harry mustn't do that this year. When I think that could have happened to him that night he ran away from the home. If the night bus hadn't picked him up, I am prepared to bet he would have been dead before the ministry found him. But he is not dead. He is fine. So what's the point? Molly, they say Sirius Black's mad and maybe he is, but he was clever enough to escape from Azkaban and that's supposed to be impossible. It's been a month and no one's seen hide nor hear of him. And I don't care what Fudge keeps telling the Daily Prophet, we are no nearer catching Black than inventing self-spelling wands. The only thing we know for sure is that Black's after, but Harry will be perfectly safe at Hogwarts. We thought Azkaban was perfectly safe. If Black can break out of Azkaban, he can break into Hogwarts. But no one's really sure that Black's after Harry. There was a third on wood, and Harry was sure Mr. Weasley had banged his fist on the table. Molly, how many times do I have to tell you they didn't report it in the press because Fudge wanted it kept quiet, but Fudge went out to Azkaban the night Black escaped. The guards told Fudge that Black's been talking in his sleep for the while now. Always the same word, he is at Hogwarts. He is at Hogwarts. Black is drained Molly and he wants Harry dead. If you ask me, he thinks murdering Harry will bring you know who back to power. Jack lost everything the night Harry stopped you know who, and he's had 12 years alone in Azkaban to brood on that. There was a silence. Harry leaned still closer to the door, desperate to hear more. Well, Arthur, you must do that. You think is right, but you are forgetting Albus Dumbledore. I don't think anything could hurt Harry at Hogwarts while Dumbledore's headmaster. I suppose he knows all this. Of course he knows. We had to ask him if the mind the Azkaban guards stationing themselves around the entrance to the school grounds. He wasn't happy about it, but he agreed. Not happy? Why shouldn't he be happy if they're to catch Black? Dumbledore isn't fond of the Azkaban guards, said Mr. Weasley heavily, nor I am. If it come to that, but when you are dealing with a wizard like Black, you sometimes have to join forces with those you had rather avoid. If they save Harry, then I will never say another word against them, said Mr. Weasley wearingly. It's late, Molly, we had better go up. Harry heard chair move. As quietly as he could, he hurried down the passage to the bar and out outside the parlor door opened, and a few seconds later footsteps told him that Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were climbing the stairs. The bottle of rat tonic was lying under the table they had sat at earlier. Harry waited until they heard Mr. and Mr. Weasley's bedroom door close, then headed back upstairs with the bottle. Fred and George were crouching in the shadow on the landing, heavily with laughter, as they listened to Percy dispatching his and Ron's room. In search of badge, we have got it, Fred whispered to Harry. We have been improving it. The badge now read Big Head Boy. Harry forced a laugh, went to give Ron and Rat tonic, then shut himself in his room and lie down on his bed. So Cyrus Black was after him. This explained everything. Fudge had been leaning with him because he was so relieved to find him alive. He had made Harry promise to stay in Diagon Alley where there were plenty of wizards to keep an eye on him, and he was sending two ministers' cards to take them all to the station tomorrow so that the Weasley could look after Harry until he was on the train. Harry lay listening to the Mudford shouting next door and wondered why he hadn't feel more scared. Cyrus Black had murdered 13 people with one curse. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley obviously thought Harry would be panic strike if he knew the truth, but Harry happened to agree wholeheartedly with Mrs. Weasley that the safest place on the earth was wherever Albus Dumbledore happened to be. Didn't people always say that Dumbledore was the only person Lord Voldemort had ever been afraid of? Surely Black, as Voldemort's right hand man, would be just as frightened of him. And then there were these Azkaban's guard everyone kept talking about. They seemed to scare most people senseless, and if they were stationed all around the school, Black's chance of getting inside seemed very remote. No, all in all, the things that bothered Harry most was the fact that his chances of visiting Hogsmeade now looked like zero. Nobody would want Harry to leave the safety of the castle until Black was caught. In fact, Harry suspected his every move would be carefully watched until the danger has passed. He scolded at the dark ceiling. Did they think he couldn't look after himself? He had escaped Lord Voldemort 3 times. He wasn't completely useless. Unbidden, the image of the best of the shadow of Magnolia Crescent crossed his mind. What to do when you know the worst is coming? I am not going to be murdered, Harry said out loud. That's the spirit, dear, said his mirror sleepily. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.